Welcome to Tech Talk. This morning, we're taking a closer look at this year's election and the role artificial intelligence and deepfakes could play. This morning, cybersecurity experts are warning the U.S. is facing increasing hacking threats. They say AI has been able to overcome some online security systems, gaining access into corporate networks. It's also being used to spread misinformation through videos and audio that seem believable.
People always have to look at the source of information. You can't just look at something and accept it as true. You've got to verify where it came from. Who's telling the story? What is their motivation? And can you verify it through multiple sources?
Some experts don't think AI is a threat to voting machines, mostly because the U.S. election system is not centralized and varies by state on the way people vote.
In fact, just this week, you may have heard a fake President Biden robocall made its rounds in New Hampshire. According to CNN, it was a digitally altered voice similar to the president's, telling voters to stay home and save their vote. Biden's campaign manager says the calls have been reported to the New Hampshire Attorney General.
For more on these potential threats and how they could affect the election, we're joined by Chief Insurance Officer for M-Broker, David Darajotis, and CEO of Rebrand Cities, Haj Flemings. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's start with you, David, and talk about deepfakes. How can you identify them?
Yeah, I think it's so important to have a little bit of discernment when we're looking at the source of the video or the audio. We can't rely specifically and only on government. There are certainly some laws that have been passed, even going back as far as 2019, that really prohibit, you look at Texas and California, prohibit the creation of synthetic media that can either damage the reputation or have some type of swing result or interference with voters. So we can't rely specifically on that. I think it's important to examine the audio and the video quality. Do the lips sync correctly to the words that are being spoken? Are there strange mannerisms that you notice within the video? And what is the source of the video or audio that's being provided? I think it's left to all of us to make sure that we're taking a closer look at the content.
And Haj, so I turn to you as far as like the tech component of all of this when it comes to the technology. Are we hearing more about this now, or are we actually just seeing the numbers exponentially rise?
So if I think about it, this is the first election that's going to be an artificial intelligence election, right? And so we've always had propaganda. We've always had smear ads, right? We can go back to the to the Daisy ad back in 1964, right? You know what I'm saying, with Lyndon Johnson. But if we're looking at it now, artificial intelligence and AI is now in the hands of everyday people, right? And the ability and the realism of these tools has supernaturally increased. And so if you think about even when Biden announced, you know, that he was actually running, there was a spot that ran up, a 30-second spot that ran. In that spot, you had photorealistic images, you had clone voices, and it's very difficult to be able to discern. Now, you can look at texture of skin, but part of what I think people need to think about is we need to become critical thinkers. We just look at stuff, we don't read, and we accept information at face value, and I think now we're going to have to now become more skeptical. I think we all need to be skeptics as we start to look at this information.
More skeptics, that's definitely what we need. Now, David, let's talk about the misinformation Haj kind of touched on there in the election cycle. How has it evolved since the last election cycle, and what are some of the things we should look for in the 2024 cycle?
Yeah, Haj is right. I mean, we have to be critical thinkers. We have to take a look at what is the narrative, what is the intent, what are they trying to get us to do with the message, with the vocals, whatever it may be, in the content that we're looking at. You know, I think a huge part, it comes around social media. You look at TikTok, 150 million users on a monthly basis. Here in the US, we're talking about 44% of the US population. Social media allows things to spread like wildfire. So when something is put out, it can hit the eyeballs of millions, hundreds of millions of people. So that is something I think that has continued to evolve since the previous election cycle. We're seeing continued growth in social media, more users, more younger people coming online, getting desensitized, scrolling through countless videos, countless content. The information and the ability to create these deep fakes to a really sophisticated, phenomenal level has gotten better. Just as Haj mentioned, these tools are available to everyday users. You don't have to have a strong technical ability to create something that looks incredible, that looks very realistic, photorealistic. The tools are there, the capabilities, the bar that you have to be able to carry out the creation of these synthetic media replicates has gotten easier, it's gotten lower. So again, it's coming back to critical thinking. We have to take a look at it. We have to examine the videos. What's the motive? What is the emotional draw that this content is trying to pull at your heart?
You know, and David just mentioned the spread of information and how quickly we're seeing, information spread. How is AI actually being used to maybe stop some of the spread of misinformation and kind of combat that and ensure that folks are getting accurate information?
All right, so that's a great question. And so all the tech platforms have put certain guardrails in place. So if you think about OpenAI, they're going to block the use of chatbots that are impersonating actual candidates. You look at Google, they're going to block certain political keywords, right? You look at Meta, they're going to, they have tools in place that are now focused on political advertisers and making sure that they cannot use generative AI tools. But part of what I think that we need to think about is what are some of the social dynamics that actually come along with these things that are being created, right? So think about these ads that are actually being generated that their desire is to create emotionally charged content that not only gets people to change how they vote, but could even create another January 6th actual situation, right? Because people are becoming very emotional based upon the actual content that they're actually seeing. So
yeah, pull on people's emotions and they'll definitely react to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, David, I want to touch on the New Hampshire primary because we already saw a case of some fake robocalls coming from the Biden camp that were urging people to stay home and not vote. I mean, what are some of these tools that hackers are using, and how easy is it for them to reproduce a robocall like this?
Unfortunately, it's extremely easy. As I mentioned, you don't have to have a strong technical background to generate any type of synthetic audio or media. Tools have been around for a number of years and they've only gotten better. So there are everyday commercial applications that you can go on. Some you pay a very small fee to be able to get access to. And I was actually surprised by the Biden robocall. I didn't think that the audio was very good. The quality was poor, the pitch, the tone didn't quite sound exactly the way the president typically sounds. So that was actually a poor rendering. There are tools that are available free, as well as, like I mentioned, for a small fee, where you can generate just incredible replicates of somebody's voice. The images are there. Tools can create great standalone images, text to image, text to speech. And again, you don't have to have a strong security, coding, technical background to create this. There are so many different tools and things that are available for the everyday person to get their hands on.
And what about some of the AI implications when we talk about, how it's going to actually affect the election, specifically here in Michigan?
So, if you look at even the political landscape, you have an actor, who's actually, I guess, like running. If you look at the governor's office, you have someone who has a technical background. And so I think that there's a lot of people who have some kind of connection to technology or entertainment. But there was a bill that was passed, and it was the, let me just look it up real quick. It was the 5141 bill. It was passed in the House, and it was used, or it is designed to be able to ensure that if ads are created, that they have to identify if it was AI generated. Now, does that mean that everything is going to be able to pass that code? I'm not sure, but they're at least trying to put things in place that would at least try to safeguard at least the general public in terms of what they're seeing. Part of what we have to understand is that when people are seeing these ads, there is something that's called cognitive bias, right? And so if you're seeing something that kind of aligns with your pre-existing beliefs, you're more inclined to believe it. And so the goal is to be able to help the general public to be able to at least be safeguarded from this. But again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Critical thinking and being very skeptical is going to be very, very important.
Not always easy to discern one from the other, that is for sure.
Always question what you see. Interesting chat this morning, gentlemen. David, Hodge, thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.